People of Reddit who have been denied when they proposed. Why did it happen and what was the end result? Proposed to girlfriend after she got off work on a Monday with her favorite meal prepared. And the apartment all lit with candles. Rose petals on the floor after having had a special weekend together. She is shy and promised violence if proposed to in public. She said no no no. 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 When I asked her to marry me as she came in the door to our apartment. She worked in the medical field and had puke all over her. She showered and said yes. I proposed after 3-ish years of dating and 1 year of living together and she said no. I was offering her my great-grandparents' wedding ring. That was Friday night. By Sunday night, after a trip to her parents, she came back and told me that she was gay. That was 22 years ago. Since then I have been married for 16 years to the next woman I dated. My wife has the wedding ring that I offered to my ex. The gay girlfriend has been with her partner for nearly 22 years. I have a daughter and they have a girl and a boy. I love them and they are just the best people ever. This is a bullet we both dodged. After a Christmas vacation we were home and I asked her about marriage. I don't want to marry you. I never wanted to marry you. I never will marry you. Followed by a 30-minute speech about missing her single life. I died a little inside. Honestly. Tried to make it work but I realize now I stopped trying after that. 8 months later she moves out. 3 months after that she is begging me to take her back. She wants to get married. She wants to own a house. And I'm just too hurt to believe her. Therapy is helping. But a 5-year relationship died that day. And I miss it. But I'm not sure I miss her anymore. Her addiction and alcoholism played a major role in her choice and feelings. She had, apparently, been using for a few months and kept it hidden. If you need help quitting heroin, go find it. It FCKs up more than just your life. The people you hurt the worst are the ones you love the most. And that love for you may never end. But how much they care for you just may. I turned down a proposal using the excuse that he was drunk. He was, but I knew he was serious. I drove him home and tried the old I want to be friends speech but he shut me down. He said if I didn't love him he would just have to get over me. And he got out of the car and walked away. A day later I realized what a f***ing idiot I was being and I called him. Tomorrow is our 26th anniversary. I asked. She said no because I drank way too much. I said I would get it under control. I tried bluffing and bullshitting instead. She saw through it and kicked me out. She was right. I don't have a clue where she is or whatever happened to her. I quit drinking now but that was definitely my life's most cruel lesson. Not my story but the best one I've ever heard. My friend's parents met at a bar down the shore. A dad was crazy about her mom. But it was unrequited. She slept with him anyway. Just a one night stand. And ignored him after that. Until she found out she was pregnant. He was over the moon and she was intent on having the baby. He tried to be with her. But she consistently refused him. Proposed to her several times. Ending in eye rolls and exasperated no's from her each time. After 9 months. She went into labor and let him come with her into the delivery room. Just her and this guy who had been begging her to marry him. A few hours into labor. The doctors started to notice something was wrong. The baby's heartbeat was slowing rapidly. The mother started to panic. But the father stayed calm. He stayed with her and communicated information from the doctors. But there was little anyone could do. She delivered a stillborn. After everything happened, my friend's mom realized she had found her soulmate. They finally got together and are still married to this day. Not exactly the question. But a man I had known briefly proposed to me on our 4th date. I said no. And he gave me the ring and asked me to consider it a promise ring. Flags and sirens everywhere. But I said okay. To spare his feelings. And continued to go out with him for a little while. Hoping that something would develop between us, from my end. I mean, it's not every day you meet someone who is so crazy about you. It turned out he was just crazy in general, sorry for the pejorative term. He was mentally ill. But crazy just fits the story. And I came to understand that with time. I broke up with him and returned the ring. And he appeared to take it very badly. A few weeks later, I heard he was dating someone else I casually knew. They were married within months. Around 5 years later, he committed suicide and murdered their son in the process. From 0 to 10,000 real quick. I was proposed to and said no. After 4 weeks of dating, he got down on his knee with a huge diamond ring and said a huge speech along the lines of, "When you know you know. Will you marry me?" Since I barely knew the guy, I flat out said no, followed by, "Sorry. Are you okay?" He didn't speak to me for the rest of the night, and then when he dropped me home I told my roommate about it. As I was telling her about it, I get a text from him. Yes, a text, saying, "You've broken my heart. I never want to see you again. Goodbye. I love you." We were both 22 at the time. "You've broken my heart. I never want to see you again. Goodbye. I love you." So incredibly dramatic and a goddamn text. She said no. Because she didn't think we were ready yet. She was a senior in college. I had graduated but hadn't found a good job in my field. After graduation, and her getting a professional job, and me getting a not quite so crappy job, we got married exactly 1 year later. On the anniversary of the day she said no the first time. 19 years and 4 kids later. It's going pretty well. 19 years and 4 kids later. I read this as 19 kids and 4 years later and was deeply concerned for a moment. Kind of the reverse situation. But a few years ago, a girl I dated for 2 months, gave me an ultimatum that if we weren't married soon, she'd leave me. There were already some issues in the relationship, so I told her to go ahead and leave. And that was a shitty proposal. She was married to some other dude 6 months later. She said no and then confessed that she had been sleeping with my brother. It ruined the trip a bit, tbh. From South India. Proposed her and got rejected right away. The reason is her parents won't accept the marriage outside their caste. Long story short, I waited and she accepted me after 3 years and took another 5 years to convince both our families. Married at 2011 and expecting our second child next month. Sorry for bad English. Not even my second language here. My mom had been going out with my dad for a few weeks. One day she said to him, "We're getting married." He said, "I'll have to think about it." He said. It wasn't a question. Last week they celebrated their 48th anniversary. In 1988, I asked the love of my life to marry me. She said no. In a funk, I left town and went on with my life. Married another girl. Had a son. Years went by. My marriage was pretty bad. So after 16 years we divorced. My friends convinced me to join Facebook. They said it would help meet girls and stuff. A few months into FB, I get a PM from the past. The love of my life had also married, had kids, and divorced. This is 25 years after my proposal and her rejection. There's a lot more to the story. But 6 months after that first PM on FB we were married and I was happy for the first time in decades. We are still going strong. With our 6th anniversary coming up in a few weeks. Dated this girl off and on for 12 years. Most recently we had been together 6 years. We're on a trip to the Philippines and we're swimming in this beautiful lagoon. I decided it's the perfect setting to propose. I begin with "Hey baby," and she must have heard it in my voice because she turned around and said "Don't do it." Took the wind out of my sail real quick. She eventually said yes a few months later in Australia. I proposed after 7 months of dating and she said no as it was too soon. I agreed and put the ring in a safety deposit box and told her that if she changed her mind, it's there for her. After 2 weeks, she said yes and we decided to have a long engagement period, 2 years, so that we could be sure. We've been married for 37 years. After reading a couple of these, I'll say this. If someone takes my f-king dog, I will find you and hurt you. Mine was more of a shitty or get off the pot deal. We had been together on and off for 5 years. She kept coming back and telling me she couldn't live without me. And get sick of my shitty and drop me for a few months at a time. And make no mistake, I was a no esteem whiner back then. She knew I am the marrying type. But she could not commit. Finally, after I had moved into my own apartment away from roommates, she asked to move in. I basically countered with a marriage proposal, knowing in the back of my head she would likely say no. That's what happened. And we never got back together. 18 months later, I met the woman of my dreams and now we have been happily married for over 15 years. Worked out just fine. Thanks. Close bracket. Edit. Clarity. PS. Holy crap on a stick. This blew up in a big way. I'll try and answer your responses. : My boyfriend just told me, in so many words, that I'm fine to FCK and great to live with. But he isn't really interested in marrying me. This was probably the wrong thread for me to dive into today. I told my husband no the first time he asked. We were drunk and hadn't been dating long. So I thought he was joking. He will swear to you that it was not a joke and that he would have taken me to Vegas that night if I'd said yes. Close bracket. The second time I said no, he was on R&R from deployment and I think he asked because it felt like the right thing to do since I was waiting for him to get back so we could continue dating and not seeing anyone else while he was gone. Not because he really wanted to get married. He asked again almost as soon as he got back and I said no again. To take a few months and decompress and just date for a little while. We kept dating and talking about it and decided the time was right about 6 months later. I am so glad I said no all those times. Not because he wasn't the right one, but because he was and I didn't want us to screw it up by getting married before we were both totally sure. I asked her twice. Over the course of 5 years. She said no twice. So I told her I wouldn't ask again. 5 years later she proposed to me in a hotel called 42. I'm a huge Hitchhiker's Guide fan. Using an iPod. I'm a huge gadget fan. I said yes. Married for 12 years now. Edit. It's actually 11 years. 12 in September next year. My dad asked my mom to marry him the moment he met her. Not joking. I swear. My dad was an Air Force captain and my mom a civilian worker when she became his secretary. Dad had a ring in his pocket for his girlfriend as he was going to propose that night. He decided to practice on my mom, who flat out said no. Apparently she elaborated with not while I'm your secretary and before the first date. Dad dumped the GF. She was a bitch anyway. Trust me. Mom transferred. They dated for 2 years. Then she said yes. They celebrated their 1/2 anniversary when he passed away from cancer 14 years ago. Every moment prior was filled with happiness and love. Ex came to the funeral. Said he caught cancer from my mom. And that I was a ginormous bitch who wouldn't amount into anything. Just like my mom. I was 12 at the time. My friend proposed with a ring his girlfriend had picked out. She said no. But kept the ring as a promise ring. They are now happily married. My dad proposed to my mom in the 8th grade. It was her first day after moving from out of state and her first class. When she sat down he walked over and said, "I'm gonna marry you." She said no. Go away. They didn't see each other beyond that class till they were 19. He saw her when he was cruising the strip at Sonic. That was the cool thing to do. Park at Sonic while the car train turned around. Asked for her number. He had no paper so he scratched it on the roof of his '69 Mustang. It was primered. They have been married with 3 kids for 37 years now. Also years later, my dad saw his old Mustang painted candy red and you could still see my mom's name and number plain as day. Just asked my girlfriend of 5 years this weekend and got left on my knees for a solid minute or 2 of back and forth before she finally said yes. We won't tell anyone except our immediate family. How it turned out. I went from madly in love with her to questioning why I'm still with her. I was the one who got proposed to. I had recently turned 18 and was about 4-5 months into my first year of university. I had been dating a guy I had met there for about 2 months. One day, he burst into my class, yelled my name, and begged me to marry him. Keep in mind, we had been dating for 2 months. I didn't flat out say no in order to avoid embarrassing him. I just said, "We'll talk after my class is over." He started loudly sobbing and grabbed my professor's bicycle. He rides it into the classroom and threw it at me. Professor called the cops, and the guy got arrested. He quit school. And now, several years later, he's a priest. TLDR. Dated guy for 2 months. He proposed. I said no. He threw a bicycle at me. He got arrested. He's now a priest. My ex asked me twice. I said no twice. She then married the next guy she met. She wanted me to propose in front of her family. She said yes. Her dad said no. The next few months he blackmailed her, threatened her, and emotionally abused her to the point that she couldn't do it anymore. Her last words to me were, "I love you. I am sorry. It sucked because I still wonder what would have been. I am married and happy. But I still wonder." Breaking off an engagement while still in love is awful. Not me, but someone I know. At a high school reunion, I met the first girl I ever dated. Turns out she had just gotten engaged. But that wasn't so good. First red flag. She had proposed to him, but he had said it wasn't her place to do that. So he brushed her off and then made her wait until he proposed to her. Second red flag. She invited me to hang out with them one afternoon. He acted like a real immature jerk. And I hoped she knew what she was getting into. They went ahead and got married. Had kids. Then his jerk routine got old and they got divorced. Now she's middle-aged and on her own. Saw that coming way too clearly. Sigh. Now she's middle-aged and on her own. You make that sound like a bad thing. Better than staying with him. It's a lot easier to be on the outside of a relationship and notice how bad it is. This thread needed a serious tag. Hell no. I wish I'd gotten here earlier. I proposed to my girl Debbie while we were skating around the roller skating rink. When I finally mustered the courage to ask her, we were right in front of the speaker so she didn't hear me. I never got the courage again. We were 7. Well, it was a blonde girl at this Hindu festival. We were there as a whole office party. I dated her for only maybe a couple of weeks, but while talking with some old married Indian couple I decided to confess my love to her. I made it public. She said no. She wanted us to talk about it. Anyway, we broke up and now I'm dating my boss. Dude. That was way too early to be asking her. And on top of that you had to put her on the spot and make it public? That just isn't right. I had my girlfriend of 2-ish months escort me to surgery. Under anesthesia, versed. I proposed to her. Much laughter was had by nurses, doctors, and her. I have zero recollection of this. Few years later, we married. And have been for almost 7 years. Apparently not having a brother puts me at an advantage. Surprisingly, I didn't get refused. I kept chickening out all evening. I was set on doing that day. So in the end I panicked because we were nearly home. And she noticed I was acting weird. So I ended up proposing in a gutter in the rain. Next to a power relay. This was about 1 month after my friend proposed to my girl's best friend on a beach in the Maldives at sunset. I f***ing hate him for that. To make matters worse, he married her in a castle on a mountaintop. And took her on a 1-month trip of a lifetime for their honeymoon. Christ, dude. Find some less impressive goddamned friends. But hey. She said yes. I proposed on a friend's yacht after about 5 years of dating. It was pretty awkward on the travel back. She left me a couple days after that and almost immediately began dating a woman after that. So I guess I dodged a bullet. Stroke. Edit. Yeah. I get it. I'm the gay bullet. She said no and I ate the ring pop. My boyfriend told me he'd never get married or have children. Ever. So. He proposed to me, and by that I mean he was standing up. Not on one knee. And jokingly said that we could get married. In front of my best friend in a crowded pizza shop at lunchtime. So I said no. Because I just thought that this was a really bad joke on his end. He wasn't joking. He's just really bad with romantic gestures. And so now we're getting married. I had asked her every so often after dating 3 years as we both came from broken relationships and were a little jaded. One day when she didn't get that deer in the headlight look we tossed around looking at rings. I managed to buy one and took her to Vegas and proposed at the Mirage after painting with dolphins. She said yes and after dating 7 years. She was my wife last August.